How you doing, everybody? How are you? It's great to be here. It's hard to follow Steve Bannon. I mean, I had the, I have to think of Bannon. I think of like force majeure. He's a force of nature, and the Man in Black. And I don't know. I think there's a softer side of Steve Bannon that we could create together. Think of the possibilities, like a mock turtleneck, a Vineyard Vines pastel. I mean, isn't there a Lilly Pulitzer for men? Like just kind of that island look, just to soften it out just a little bit, so our friends in the media doesn't think he's so mean. Wouldn't that be nice? I saw Roy Moore yesterday. He spoke yesterday, right? He was here. Now, let me just say, after watching him, if Roy Moore wins that Senate seat, of course he's going to make Ted Cruz look like Jeff Flake. My God, this morning, I don't know if you guys saw the press, you guys have all been here, but according to the, I guess it's the AP report, he's blockaded himself in Statuary Hall at the Capitol, and he's chained himself to the Robert E. Lee statue. That's incredible. I love that. Isn't that great? So Moore's already... I think that... I just have one more thing to say about this is a little lighten it up here, because things can be depressing if you follow politics. And I am of the view, and I'm going to try to do this on Fox every night. I'm of the view that we all need to have fun while we're in this battle for America. Don't you think? It's fun. It's fun to win. It's fun to win, and it's a great joy to be able to spend a little time with you today. And I was thinking about, the poor Democrats. Everyone's talking about Donald Trump and the divided party. Bannon got into that. I'll get into that a little bit more. But the poor Democrats, I mean, they're having a dickens of a time doing fundraising. Have you seen this? They're now trying to incentivize donors and get, they need the small, contributions coming and so forth. So for $25, I guess now the DNC, you get this, Frisbee thing. They send it to you in the mail. And for $50, you get a We Love You, Hillary, still T-shirt. For $100, you get a subscription, lifetime subscription to Mother Jones. I think that's going out of business, but you still get the subscription. And this is what I find most interesting that the DNC is doing. They need more bundlers. If you raise $150,000, you're called a bundler. So if you sign up to be a bundler and you're really aggressive about it, I guess now the DNC has announced, this was yesterday, they will send you a terry cloth robe that opens easily in the front. It's odd, though, all the robes have HW as the initials, and the monogram. I think we have to laugh, don't you? They always say we're judged by the company we keep, and that's a pretty good line. It's a pretty good rule of thumb. But I also think we should judge ourselves on the enemies we make. Think about the Republicans who supported Donald Trump and continued to support his populist agenda, the agenda that I outline in Billionaire at the Barricades, my new book. It's a nationalist agenda. You heard Steve talk about it. It's America first. It's policies that work for the people. But think about it. If you're for Donald Trump and you're for that agenda, not the old Republican agenda, but that agenda, your enemies are the following. They've declared war on you. Antifa, the fascist group. They call it anti-fascist, but it is most fascist. La Raza, the NFL anthem squatters. They don't much like you. Since when did kneeling become... I don't even understand the protest. Why is kneeling even a bad thing? If they're kneeling at the anthem, you could say maybe they actually just like the anthem a lot. Like when you kneel, it's a sign of respect. I don't even understand their protest. Most of the press corps, they're, of course, against us. Most of the entertainment industry, because we know they are the moral arbiters of our time. The Democrat machine, still run by the previous administration. And of course, let's not forget the never Trump globalist GOP and the consultancy and pundit class, including, by the way, on Capitol Hill, all those senators who, if their primaries were held today in their home state, they would be sent packing. Speaking of, before I leave this topic, there is some good news out there. There is great news, actually. This is New York Times. Finally, speaking of the Weinstein mess in Hollywood, there's finally a new law firm that has formed to give Gloria Allred a run for her money. She represents a lot of these women who have been abused and subjugated in the workplace. And it's just formed. It's going to be a big deal. It's called Clinton, Weiner, Spitzer, and Weinstein. Has a nice ring to it, don't you think? Let's not forget how conservative women have been dismissed and demeaned and reviled by all the right people, all the right adversaries. Perhaps Hillary Clinton, Michelle Obama, who said, "We voted for Trump because we do what we're told to do." Now, everyone who knows me would know that that wouldn't really apply. But I think, what about all those workshops and all of those seminars that Hillary and Michelle convened about girl power and girl first, and we got to support women. It doesn't matter what your views are. At the same time, I was thinking maybe Hillary should rename her book tour. It should be called "I Am Woman, Hear Me Bore." They're so exposed, right? They were never for women of different political viewpoints. They are for you, women, if you agree with them, liberals. If you are a woman who truly thinks for herself and is not cowed or frightened because of the calumny being directed your way, then frankly, you don't really deserve protection. They don't really care about you, and they will ridicule you. And usually in front of in a university setting or in some general session of left-wing malcontents. I titled my new book, Billionaire at the Barricades, for a reason. The subtitle is The Populist Revolution from Reagan to Trump. Donald Trump has a lot of walls to clear and one wall to build. He has the old GOP guard that never really wanted him to succeed. Of course, he has an entertainment industry that really should be sending him residuals because apparently they can't write a joke that doesn't include his name. He's up against the Democrat machine, of course, that is fueled by groups like the American Association of Trial Lawyers, Planned Parenthood, and every other left-wing interest group that you can think of. He's against the bipartisan cabal that has gotten fat and happy off the old way. They became very comfortable in a Washington that didn't represent the people. And the people are onto them. The American people, whether in this moment they like Donald Trump or not, the American people, I think, are really smart. That's the reason I describe myself as a conservative populist. I would rather, like Donald Trump, trust the people to run their lives rather than a far-flung bureaucracy at the World Trade Organization or the UN or some government agency that will never be accountable to you. I trust the American people. The government works for them, not the other way around. The government is not enslaving the people. The government are supposed to be the servants of the people, period. People ask me, like, well, why, Laura, is this big rift in the Republican Party? And I explain all this from my days as a young 22-year-old working in the Reagan administration and how he inspired my generation and so many who came after, all the way up until we gave Eric Cantor a 2x4 across the electoral face with Dave Pratt in 2014. I explain how Donald Trump, he didn't win because of Comey or even because Hillary was a bad candidate. He didn't win because he was a celebrity or even that he was self-funded. Donald Trump won because he was unafraid to hold up a mirror to the failures of the bipartisan establishment that refused to do what the people for really a couple of decades had been demanding that they do. That's why he won. He won because of the issues. Who voted for open borders? Who voted to deindustrialize the Midwest? Who voted to send millions of our jobs to Asia and other countries? Who voted for perpetually low wages for our middle class and low entry-level position workers? Who voted to completely upend the understanding of gender in the United States? Who voted for any of this? The answer is none of us voted for this. We voted for candidates along the way who promised to do our will and respect the Constitution. That is what we did because we tended to give people the benefit of the doubt. And like, Lucy in the football, we kind of became Charlie Brown, election cycle after election cycle, until we couldn't take it anymore. Our back was about to break. We saw the country was about to be lost forever. Donald Trump understood that uniquely, and he followed in the line of others who came before, however, from going all the way back to Richard Nixon and believing that we had to listen to the silent majority, to law and order, to all the way up to Ronald Reagan surprising a GOP establishment in 1976 by almost winning the nomination, and then coming along like a hurricane himself in 1980 and blowing past the Bushes and everyone else who ridiculed him, demeaned him, and said he was just an actor. He didn't know anything. He shook up the country. He brought us back from the brink. He helped defeat the Soviet Union, and he set a blueprint, a conservative, oftentimes populist blueprint for how to appeal to a wider range of Americans. I went back, and in the book, I describe what happened in 1988 as Reagan was leaving office. Just to show you, this divide wasn't created by Donald Trump. This divide has been there. 1988, as Reagan was leaving office, a lot of us Reaganites were going on to do other things. I was going to law school at the University of Virginia, and some of my colleagues wanted to stay and help the Bush administration. Well, they didn't know that slowly but surely the Reagan people would be purged from the ranks of the new Bush administration. And why would they be purged? And I describe a particular incident at the Department of Justice, which is disturbing. Why were they purged? Because philosophically, Reagan was on a different plane than George H.W. Bush. He respected him. He picked him as his vice president. But Reagan uniquely understood the heart and soul of the American working class. He understood that without social conservatives and defense hawks and libertarians and the populists all together, this coalition would crumble. And indeed, we saw it beginning to crumble in 1992. Who came along then, of course? Well, Pitchfork Pat Buchanan, with many of the same issues we're talking today, warning that if we had open borders and trade agreements that did not benefit the American working class, that the American understanding would itself be endangered. As more people thought the system just didn't even work anymore. It didn't work for them, it didn't work for their kids, that in fact they were being treated as the enemies of the government. And Pat Buchanan ultimately wasn't successful, but let's not forget, whether it was him or Ross Perot, boy, did they garner a lot of support, and did they set the stage for what would come all those years later with Donald Trump? Remember, even George W. Bush ran on a humble foreign policy in 2000. That was welcome news to the voters at the time. In 1988, the Cato Institute wrote a long article ridiculing Ronald Reagan. Now, I like a lot of the folks at Cato. I like a lot of the stuff they do on taxes and the deregulatory stuff. But they branded Reagan a know-nothing protectionist on trade. Why? Ronald Reagan thought it was worthwhile to save an American company called Harley-Davidson. He believed that it was well within our right in protecting our people and our businesses to slap a 45% temporary tariff on cheap Japanese motorcycles that came into the United States. And lo and behold, we have one of the most successful American companies still in business today because of what Ronald Reagan did at that moment to save that American company. That was wildly popular. It was a populist Ronald Reagan. That was the protectionist Ronald Reagan. Since when is it bad to be a protectionist, by the way? What, you are protecting something, right? You are conserving something. Republican presidents throughout our history understood that there will be certain times where temporary tariffs are necessary to level the playing field in the international marketplace. It just makes sense. When our companies are getting hammered overseas with tariffs and barriers, we just let everyone come here with nary a peep. And certainly the mood and the establishment of the GOP was very anti-tariff. Ronald Reagan said it doesn't have to be this way. Even George W. Bush slapped temporary tariffs on cheap, cold-rolled steel coming in from China. Today, all these years later, what is Donald Trump doing? Donald Trump has assembled, without a doubt, the most impressive, the most qualified trade team that we've ever seen in American government. The most incredible people. They don't get much credit, by the way. And I'm not going to repeat all the stuff that Bannon said about the issues that we all care about. On this issue, Bob Lighthizer was the deputy U.S. Trade Representative, I think the youngest in American history for Ronald Reagan. He is now our U.S. Trade Representative. He is phenomenal. Phenomenal. I think for the first time in decades, we now have Lighthizer, and Wilbur Ross at Commerce is helping. Stephen Vaughn is a general counsel over there. We have amazing people. Peter Navarro at the White House. They are doing something called, and I don't want to sound wonky here, but a 301 investigation on China. It's under the Federal Fair Trade Act in the 1970s. It's a 301 investigation into the theft of American intellectual property that's being done on a daily basis by China. We got Chinese cheap imports stealing our intellectual property, American-made ingenuity, taking it, pirating it, making it overseas, sending it here, everything from pharmaceuticals to Cambria countertops, which I understand they're stealing the IP on, the quartz countertops, and cheap stuff that's probably poisoning us. Trump administration said not going to get away with that, not going to do it. The Korean Free Trade Deal, NAFTA, all of these agreements need to be revisited, re-examined, and, if necessary, rewritten, and if they don't agree with the rewrites on the other side, repealed. That's what has to happen. Donald Trump has done more in 10 months for social conservatives than I believe the previous GOP president did in 8 years. What did he do? The Mexico City policy, gone. Funding abortions overseas. Neil Gorsuch, one of the most qualified people I could conceive of, being on the Supreme Court. He's expanded religious liberty in the United States by opening up the types of groups that will be exempt from the Obamacare contraception mandate. And let's not forget his first foreign trip, which again he gets no credit for, visiting all three major religions, the sites that represent all three major religions from the Middle East, and gathering together all of those Muslim nations saying, we've got to have a reformation, we need your help, it's going to be in your hands, to visiting Pope Francis, and of course going to Israel. This trip set the stage for the type of president I believe he can be and he will be. That should be welcome news to all the social conservatives listening to me across the United States and in this room. And I was proud to march at the annual March for Life this year in January, and I was so heartened, and we were all so happy who were there. It was hundreds of thousands of people to actually have our vice president address the March for Life, live, not on a videotape. He was live and he was there. Talk about inspiring. The Democrats have a policy of resistance. They don't really have an agenda for America. And I would say, unfortunately, that affliction also can be found in the Republican Party, where if you ask the average person on the street, what are the political parties trying to do in Washington? What are the Democrats about? And then you say, what are the Republicans about? it's kind of confusing to people. I think the simplicity and the clarity of messaging is so important, both at the White House and on Capitol Hill. Right now, we know what this administration wants to do. It's 2 words: America first. Very clear. What are we going to do? What are we going to do in foreign policy? Put America first. What are we going to do in immigration policy? Put America first. Trade policy? America first. Social policy? Put America first. The culture wars, with what we saw in the national anthem? America first. From trade to foreign policy to immigration to all the issues in between, we can understand where the Trump administration wants to take us. He is doing his best under very difficult circumstances. He's not a perfect person. He's not going to get everything right. Neither do any of us. But time and time again, you will see that this administration is going to give voice to those who haven't had a voice in many, many years. The silent majority strikes again. We've been kicked to the curb for too long. We've been demeaned and will be demeaned as time goes on. It doesn't bother me one bit. I'm looking forward every night on Fox News to be telling a broader story about America. We'll hit the political topics, of course. We'll have plenty of conflict. But there's so much goodness in our country that I see on a daily basis that I think it's incumbent upon us as we take seriously our role as conservative warriors, but it's incumbent upon all of us to remind the broader American public of what is innately so positive and so blessed about this country. From every level, from the local level to our schools, to teachers who are doing a great job, to those who give and sacrifice and never make it on YouTube. I'm going to be telling those stories. I'm going to be telling your stories, politics and the rest of life, everything in between. I hope you'll tune in every night at 10 p.m. We're going to have a lot of surprises in the first few weeks. We're going to have a lot of fun. I'll need your prayers as I pray for you. I pray for our country. I pray for the wisdom of our leaders. We must be happy warriors. I will pledge to you, I will do my very best as time goes on, as I did to try to frame this election cycle in the broader historical context. And I will do this every day, every night, on the radio, on television, and as I continue to write. I'm so proud of what the Values Voters Summit has done, and I'm so proud of all of you for never giving up, never giving in. And always remember what Ronald Reagan told me as I walked out of the Oval Office for the very last time. He said, "Laura, make it matter." Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. I'll be signing books. See ya.